Okay, let's just dive right into this explainer and uncover what is honestly an epic, invisible war hidden deep within ancient manuscripts. I mean, we all know the traditional Sunday school version of Noah's Ark, right? The animals lining up two by two, the rain, the rainbow at the end. But what if I told you the oldest texts in the world hold a massive secret that our modern versions leave out entirely? We are talking about a much darker, infinitely more dangerous reality.
Seriously, think about this for a second. How did Noah's Ark survive completely unprotected for decades? It was literally just sitting there in an open field, in a world that ancient texts describe as being overrun by actual monsters. So what if the story you learned in childhood was really just a sanitized, simplified version of a terrifying, high-stakes standoff?
To actually answer that, we have to look at the hidden manuscripts of the Judean desert. These apocryphal texts, specifically the Book of Enoch and the Book of Jubilees, which date back thousands of years, they reveal a terrifying reality. Now, because these texts get so deep into cosmic warfare and radical angelology, they were largely excluded from standard mainstream canons by later authorities. They just found them too mythologically dense, you know? But the raw history they preserve is absolutely stunning. They detail that while Noah was building the ark, nailing these massive wooden beams together under a totally indifferent sky, he wasn't alone. He was being constantly watched by ancient beings of impossible supernatural stature.
Now, this wasn't just some sudden, unexpected rainstorm. We're looking at a timeline of escalating, terrifying stakes spanning decades. It starts with years of tense construction right under the gaze of giants. That leads to a fateful moonless night descent, a supernatural standoff at the edge of the forest, and finally, the apocalyptic flood itself. So let's take a closer look at who exactly was threatening humanity's last hope. Okay, so we've got two entirely different forces colliding here. On one side, you have the Nephilim. These are the colossal, monstrous children of fallen watchers who basically ruled the ancient world with corrupted blood, brute force, and total chaos. And on the exact opposite side, an unnamed guardian angel. But here's the catch. This angel isn't armed to the teeth. Instead, it's defined by this absolute terrifying calm and unmovable certainty. At first, these giants kind of just let the construction happen. Honestly, it was a joke to them. They openly mocked this crazy old man rambling about water falling from the sky. But as this immense ark actually started taking shape, the whole atmosphere shifted. These colossal beings felt a real change in the air. Their arrogant mockery twisted into this instinctive primal dread, and they decided it was finally time to descend into the valley and just reduce the whole vessel to ashes. And so, on a completely moonless night, they made their move. Picture this, their colossal bodies descending en masse from the surrounding hills, literally blocking out the stars. Against them, the massive wooden ark suddenly looked incredibly fragile, like a child's toy. The giants moved with this absolute predatory confidence, completely certain they were going to crush the timber to splinters. But right at the edge of the clearing, something abruptly stopped them dead in their tracks. Standing directly in front of the vessel was a solitary figure, completely motionless. This being was glowing with this fierce, intense light, almost like a carved lightning bolt planted right in the soil. The angel wasn't waving a flaming sword around, and it wasn't shouting threats into the dark forest either. It was simply there, anchored with a terrifying solidity that seemed to command the very earth beneath its feet. And you know what? That total lack of reaction was infinitely more terrifying to the Nephilim than any forged weapon ever could be. There's this idea that stillness means certainty, and certainty reveals that one knows exactly why they were sent. Deep down, hidden beneath centuries of corruption, the giants recognized this very specific kind of divine authority. It made them, the apex predators of the ancient world, actually hesitate. But despite that deep hesitation, the largest of the giants took one deliberate step forward. You could hear the dry ground crackle beneath his boot. The angel didn't retreat a single millimeter. Instead, the physical pressure in the air between them became supernatural. It compressed brutally, stretching the atmosphere of the valley to the absolute point of rupture, making those ancient, massive trees groan loudly under the invisible weight. Then, in a fraction of a second, a single flash sculpted a burning line directly into the Earth's crust with celestial fire. No theatrical explosion, no deafening thunderclap to alert the world, nothing like that. Just a deep, irrefutable, glowing border permanently engraved into the dirt, drawn precisely between the silent angel and the towering monsters. It was a direct message from the throne of God, completely legible without a single spoken word. You will come this far, and not a step further will you cross while I remain before this vessel." This unwritten holy decree forced the giants to just freeze in place. Completely overwhelmed by the crushing weight of an authority they knew they couldn't defeat, the monsters were forced to slink back into the shadows of the dark woods. Now, while this intense cosmic standoff is happening just outside, imagine what it was like inside the camp. Inside those fragile tents, Noah could feel the heavy spiritual threat. The ancient texts tell us that as weeks dragged into agonizing months, the faithful builder could sense that demonic pressure lurking right at the tree line. He'd wake up startled in the dead of night, whisper an urgent prayer, and inexplicably, a supernatural heavy peace would always return to his family's camp. Out in the forest, though, peace absolutely did not exist. One scarred ancient Nephilim, a seasoned, brutal warrior who had crushed entire human cities with his bare hands, was deeply humiliated by that burning line. For weeks, he stalked the Guardian from the rocky ridges above, desperate to find just a single physical flaw, one moment of distraction. But the angel's impenetrable, flawless perfection only fueled the giant's unquenchable, obsessive rage. Finally, a night arrived that was vastly darker than the rest. The burning mark on the ground had faded into ash. The giant deliberately stepped over the invisible memory of that holy border, entering the clearing, and absolutely nothing happened. No divine fire, no lightning from above. Foolishly mistaking the angel's sovereign stillness for weakness, the giant reached his massive, scarred hand directly toward the wooden beams of the ark. And that is exactly where the tension finally breaks. The angel's voice spoke, echoing as if vastly more than one tone coexisted inside the words. "You will not touch this." Moving in one fluid, impossible motion, the angel released this explosive shockwave of wind, crushing the giant's senses with pure, blinding light. This wasn't a warning. It wasn't a plea. It was an eternal, unbreakable decree. When the giant stubbornly tried to push through and strike the ark anyway, that holy light collided violently with his corrupted flesh. It instantly repelled him with a force infinitely heavier than gravity or fire. The colossal being was violently thrown backward through the clearing, tumbling like an uprooted tree cast aside by supreme divine authority, crashing wildly into the ancient trunks of the forest. The humiliated giant picked himself up from the splintered logs, his pride completely shattered. And as he limped back into the dark woods, a chilling, terrifying realization set in. This brutal, bone-crushing defeat, it was merely God's merciful restraint. The Guardian hadn't even fought at full strength. And if that was just restraint, what was the actual impending judgment going to look like? Well, they wouldn't have to wait long to find out. The atmosphere around the valley became impossibly heavy, and then the massive great door of the ark was sealed. According to the texts, it wasn't closed by Noah's hands, but by a supernatural force, locking them securely inside. Once that heavy timber slammed shut and sealed, the angel's mission instantly shifted from passive protection to something radically different. The first crack of thunder literally shook the core of the earth. The sky tore open, and the sources of the deep abyss broke violently from below. As the apocalyptic floodwaters erupted, those same giants who had mocked Noah lunged at the ark in dark, blind desperation. They charged right through the violently rising waters, refusing to drown in silent resignation, desperately hoping their colossal strength could somehow halt the judgments. But the angel was still standing firm. As the most arrogant of the giants reached desperately for the floating wood, the Guardian completely released its divine restraint. The angel didn't attack in some emotional fury. Instead, it executed a surgical, crushing application of pure, cold authority. It effortlessly pushed the raging giants back into the deep, ensuring the ark floated freely and safely away from the ruined earth. Just take a second to grasp the unimaginable scale of this great cleansing. Ancestral mountains, thought to be eternal, disappeared beneath the violent tides. Ancient, dark forests were swallowed whole. Wicked empires and cities were entirely erased, washed away as if they had never existed at all. The pure, chaotic violence of that ancient world was permanently silenced, leaving the surface of the earth in complete, tranquil silence so that life could finally begin anew. As the ark drifted safely away toward the horizon, the glowing Guardian positioned itself on the very last visible rock protruding from the endless ocean. It silently watched the floating vessel for 40 days and 40 nights. Having perfectly executed this high-stakes mission completely undocumented by mortal history, this nameless protector withdrew obediently. Its vital assignment totally complete, it simply faded away like morning mist at dawn. The lesson hidden behind this ancient apocryphal text is incredibly powerful. When God establishes a covenant, he protects it with all the weight and authority of the entire heaven. This story ultimately reveals a really profound truth. When corrupted, insurmountable forces rise against what is meant to be preserved. An unbreakable line is drawn in the sand, whether we can see it or not.
And it leaves us with this profound thought to carry with us today. What if the invisible spiritual battles you never even realized were happening around you are the exact reason you survived your darkest moments? What if an invisible, nameless guardian executing a silent order is the very reason you are still here today? It certainly changes how we look at the quiet moments of peace in our own lives, doesn't it?